Well, hello there. It is finally time for the last Marvel movie of my Marvel marathon, which means after this video, I am going to finally make my Marvel ranked from 20 to 1. All the films. I'll talk about them in brief. I'll talk about my reasoning. It's going to be very controversial. It's going to be very different from the standard movie list website ranking, but you know how this channel is. We're full of hot takes. We don't go with the flow here. So, yeah. But for now, let's talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Well, this is my second time seeing it because this movie is very dense. There's so much going on in this film that I didn't get a chance to make a video when I saw it in Oregon about a week ago. I decided, in order to give you guys the best review, I would watch it again, and boy, did it help me. It definitely did. I got to think about a lot of what makes this film so good. That's right. This film is a 4.9 out of 5. I think this film is phenomenal. I think this film ranks very highly within the Marvel canon. And that's already a teaser for how controversial my list will be. But I'm not going to tell you the ranking because I want to save it for that video. But, man, if you thought Avengers Infinity War was the most ambitious superhero crossover, storytelling, character juggling movie of the year, Ant-Man and the Wasp gives it a run for its money. Because for those of you who don't know this movie, I don't watch trailers, so I don't know what the trailers for this film were like. But this film, man, so you know those recent Liam Neeson movies like The Commuter and Run All Night, where they just keep on stacking plots? They keep on stacking characters. I don't think it's just Liam Neeson. It's like a lot of throwaway action movies in general. They try to make the plot super complex. They try to have like 3 to 4 sides, kind of all like converging in this one building, this one street, this one area where all the action takes place. And usually those movies are very bad because of how convoluted they are. Well, I'm going to tell you, Ant-Man and the Wasp is the best version of that movie that I can think of off the top of my head. There are so many things going on in this movie. This movie just, there's so many sides, different characters, different teams that kind of just intertwine. They meet with each other. And what Marvel pulls off here, it's like they're just trying to show off how good they are at doing these stories where the characters just intertwine. They're just trying to show off how good they are with doing this type of multi-charactered storytelling. And it's kind of amazing because we just got Avengers Infinity War, and I thought this was going to be the light, breezy movie. And in many ways, it is the light, breezy movie compared to Avengers Infinity War. But this movie has a lot going for it. It is action-packed. The action scenes are creative. Peyton Reed's not the best action director, but what he does here is admirable. I'd say the action scenes in the first film are still better because of the Edgar Wright touches. You got those big shots of like when Ant-Man first shrinks. I won't spoil it for you guys if you haven't seen it, but when Ant-Man first shrinks, that whole the giant tracking shots, the continuous shots that I think is mostly Edgar Wright's doing. Those are definitely superior. Peyton Reed does more cuts. And the edits aren't as perfect as, say, a Winter Soldier or a Civil War or an Infinity War or Mad Max Fury Road, George Miller type of directing. So, yeah, but it's still pretty it's still pretty easy to follow the action. And especially during this rewatch, the first time I sort of had to reorient myself every time the camera cut. So it was like, oh, where am I? Where are we? This particular car chase. I will say no more, but there's a particular car chase in this movie where there's a lot going on. But Peyton Reed, you know, for a guy who's done like crappy comedies for most of his career, I gotta give him props for what he does here because the action is very good. Yeah, you know, you know what I realized? The title Ant-Man and the Wasp is so fitting because you look at the first Ant-Man, and if you really think about it, this is not just a movie about Scott Lang or Paul Rudd's character, who plays Ant-Man as we know it in this universe, in this current era. But the first Ant-Man is also about Hank Pym and him dealing with his legacy, him dealing with his past, him dealing with his daughter, reconciling with her. So the name Ant-Man kind of applies to both of them, both Scott Lang and Hank Pym. And for those of you who've seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, you see how clever it is, because Ant-Man and the Wasp is not just about Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd teaming up together. It's not just about that. It's not just about Hope and Scott finally becoming a duo. It's also about Michelle Pfeiffer's character. It's also about, oh my gosh, I forgot her name. No. Janet, yeah. It's also about Janet and Hank and their reunion. So it's such a brilliant title. It's such a minute thing. I don't even know how many other people are talking about it, but it just shows how character-driven these movies are. Like the first Ant-Man, so much of it is about family. See, the parallel between Hank Pym and Scott Lang is that both of them are dealing with family issues. Both of them are fathers dealing with situations with their daughters. That car's going to run into me. That car did not run into me. But, yeah, so there's the parallel there. And where was I going? No. I lost my train of thought. I've had this such a brilliant point. Oh my gosh. No, just because that car, it distracted me. But yeah, there's the parallel basically between, them and their daughters. And then the second film, it's the romance between Scott and Hope coming back together. And then it's also about Hank and Janet. I'm trying to use the names of the characters because, I was saying how character driven it is. Right, because the second one is also about family. And it's also about these personal stories. So a lot of people, a lot of other reviewers have said how this has felt like the most side story of all the Marvel movies. And I agree, like in terms of the events in Infinity War, this is the one that tries to tie it in with the bigger universe the least. Except for one particular scene, which, let's not talk about that. But, if you take this movie seriously as its own entity, it's still very, very heavy and very, very significant, because if you like the character of Hank Pym, and who doesn't, because Michael Douglas is fantastic as this role. I'm so glad he got this role, because he's able to work his comedy chops, he's able to work his dramatic chops, and yeah, it's so good because, oh my gosh. No. I can't talk right now. I'm still getting the hang of doing reviews again. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, the movie. Okay, I swear this won't happen the entire video. The movie is significant because if you like the characters of Hank Pym and Scott Lang, and you care about his dynamic with his daughter and Hank Pym's attachment to his wife, and just the grief that he feels for losing her, this movie is very significant. It packs a punch. I mean, it's a happy movie, but even the villains in this movie, they have very, very deep motivations, and they're not cliche at all. In fact, I think this movie has one of the more, we're definitely the upper tier of good, memorable Marvel villains that are not throwaway, that are interesting. So I think this movie is pretty significant in the Marvel universe, and for that reason, and the comedy is great, and all these things combined, it's just one of the most successful movies in the MCU, and the action's good, and what else was I going to say? Yeah, that's the funniest Marvel movie. It actually has, I believe, the most jokes per minute of any Marvel movie, which, yeah, you know, there are movies that, most Marvel movies are known for their humor, and sometimes the humor gets a little over the top, like some of the ones in Doctor Strange, or some of the humor wasn't really refined, and they kind of took away from some of the more dramatic moments and the immersion of it. Thor Ragnarok was another example where Taika Waititi, go watch that review, it had to settle for like an improv approach when I felt like the comedy could have been much better integrated with the drama of Thor Ragnarok. But I think this is the one where, despite the ton of quipping, and it even does that thing in modern, I wouldn't be surprised if they did a lot of improv in this movie. And a lot of modern comedies that aren't MCU do that. They rely on the talent of, say, Kate McKinnon, as a couple of other people, you know, the SNL cast. Michael Pena has been in Chips and stuff. Just all the comedic talents. And sometimes you get a Neighbors, which is quite solid. They take the best... they actually come up with funny material and then they edit it together and they keep all the best stuff. But most of the time, all these mainly improv comedies are kind of crap. They're really crappy. So it is very admirable when a film that's super quippy, that's all about these quippy lines, can be so funny and so effective. And it does not detract from the dramatic moments. It does not detract from the tension. One of the things I didn't like about Thor Ragnarok was that it felt like there was no urgency to get to the climax, to get to this big, because Ragnarok means apocalypse, to get to this prophecy that's literally being fulfilled, to save Asgard. You know, there's no urgency there. While in this film, despite the quippy lines, you can say there are one or two exceptions that where they might have took it a little far when there was some drama going on. But overall, the urgency of the film is totally there. So that's pretty fantastic. Yeah, phenomenal movie. What else am I gonna say? What did I want to say? That is a spoiler free. Oh yeah, let's just talk about how all the actors are phenomenal. I keep on using the word phenomenal. Okay, the acting isn't like Oscar worthy, but they're pretty great, especially when it comes to comedy and just using the characters' facial expressions along with the dialogue to create comedy. And I mentioned Michael Douglas. And obviously Paul Rudd is fantastic. But even Evangeline Lilly, where in the first film she was kind of annoying, she was kind of just very uptight, and all her comedy, if any of her comedy, the ones that were funny, I don't even remember if she had any funny jokes. Like, oh, and that's how you punch? That's it? That's not a funny joke. But in this movie, she's able to exercise her comedic chops. She has some facial expressions that made me chuckle. And her chemistry with Paul Rudd is better. And she's just not as... Forgive my French, but like she's just not as bitchy as she was in the first one. And it shows in her haircut too. In the second one, her hair's down, and I think she looks prettier in that hair. And it some of the more uptight, just the very clean cut, like some of her facial features were like covered, her ears were covered, and I feel like even that has to do with, in the second film, you see her ears, you see her entire face, you don't see part of it being blocked, and she has a pretty face. I mean, come on, I can say that. She's just way more charming. Michael Pena gets more lines. Michael Pena is phenomenal. He's just that guy who doesn't fit in. He just always has to have his quippy lines. But this movie shows me how good Michael Pena is as a comedic actor. And I saw Chips last year, and he was terrible. And he was in Vatican Tapes as this priest. I didn't see that, but I guarantee you that's not good. But in this movie, I just wish that, like, MCU is great, and, people throw shit on it, and I understand, because it is very, it's Disney, it's the money-making machine, and they do make good original films, but, a part of me does wish that Michael Pena, and even Bobby Cannavale, with which, whatever screen time he has, I think he showed great contrast from who he was in the first film, and it just shows his range, and how he can be likable and despisable through these two Ant-Man films. And yeah, both Michael Pena and Bobby Cannavale, I do wish there were more original films that aren't like MCU, that aren't adaptations, original comedies that really showcase their talent more. And it's great and all that people are seeing this. It did open as number one in the box office and all, and that's awesome. But I do wish that these great actors can be great in everything they do. Maybe it's the agent's fault, but they gotta pick better movies to participate in. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say. I feel like anything that I forget, I'll talk about it either in the spoiler section or in my MCU roundup. But let's get into spoilers. So, I gotta give props. No. Okay. You probably turn it off if you haven't seen this, but I gotta give props to the soundtrack. This is one of the more generic Marvel soundtracks, which is most of them, but there were a couple of standout moments, and since we're in spoilers, I might as well ruin it. There were a couple of standout moments where the soundtrack just had that little bit of interesting stuff going on that made it pop out a bit. Like when Paul Rudd was in the hoodie and like miniature, his shrinker wasn't working properly, and there's that part where he's like going down the stairs, and that whole running on the hallway scene. It's so funny because the soundtrack, there's this weird little deep, which is so good. It's so funny. It just brings out the humor even more. And of course, there's that car chase. The moment the car chase starts, that beat that pumps in, I'm like, oh, is this going to be Baby Driver? Are they going to use a pre-existing song? They don't. This is an original track, and I love it. And that just keeps the energy. That third act car chase, man. Let's talk about that. Oh my gosh. I've heard someone say that compare this with the car chase in The Matrix Reloaded, and man, the comparison is totally appropriate. I think The Matrix Reloaded is still a better car chase scene just because the Wachowskis did a hell of a job directing that scene. The Matrix Reloaded car chase is mostly about the fusing. It's mostly about like going in and out of the cars at will, fusing in and out of it, which Ant-Man and the Wasp does, but only with Ava's character mostly. And, you can argue that when Ant-Man and the Wasp, they shrink and they go in the cars and then they come back, that's kind of like fusing. But, again, Peyton Reed's directing isn't perfect. His action direction is still slightly lacking. But it's still very impressive. This is like greatest car chase scene of and I really like the Deadpool 2 car chase too. I thought that was really fun, albeit a little generic, but this car chase beats that knocks it out of the park. But if we're comparing this car chase with the Matrix Reloaded car chase, that one still edges it out a little bit. And that's that. Phenomenal car chase, so creative. Pez, funny joke. Yeah, and every time they stop for a quippy line, it never feels like it was trying to, it was stopping the action too much. So that's great. And I don't even know how long that scene lasts. It keeps on going and going and going. And then Michael Douglas goes into the quantum realm, and it's so beautiful, arguably even more beautiful than the first one. You get to see like the microorganism creatures, because halfway through he had to recalibrate, and the little microorganism creatures are like so freaking it's just so freaking awesome. And then he goes deeper and it gets even more beautiful. And one of my minor quips with the first Ant-Man is that they didn't show us the quantum realm as much as I wanted it to, and I thought that would be the only film that shows the quantum realm. So I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a missed opportunity. But now having seen the second one, I mean, now I can see the first one as, oh, they're only teasing us with it. They're going to go much deeper in the second one. I mean, come on. Look, it's cheesy when he reunites with Michelle Pfeiffer, but when they do that background with all the crazy stuff, it's so beautiful. You compare that with like something that's so dull, like in the recent Fantastic Four movie, where they go into that weird realm with the green goo, and like it's the same idea, except this looks so much better than the other one. Like there's not even a comparison. So like, and that's not even particularly realistic. Nothing about the quantum realm in this film looks realistic, but it looks like a place that I want to visit if I have the comic book technology. And that's awesome. Yeah, we can talk about the technology in this movie, the sci-fi. If you really think about it, you know, you can probably pick out 20 plot holes in this movie, but in many ways, this is the type of comic book movie that I really, really like. This feels like a comic book movie. You know, we try to do these serious films like Black Panther, you know, where it's all about racial stuff. It's about like empowerment. And then we have like Avengers Infinity War. It's trying to do the cinematic experience that takes it outside of the comic book territory and kind of does it more like a 2.5 hour long TV episode. Or like, and that's not degrading the film. It's like using a TV mentality to do film. And that's remarkable. But sometimes we just need some good old comic book fun. The first Ant-Man definitely had that. But this one really, really upped it. It upped it so much. The sci-fi is totally out of whack. So much of it doesn't make any sense. And I love the way when they do the exposition. The first one was when Randall Park, by the way, he was fantastic. I'll talk about him later. Oh, I forgot to talk about Randall Park. Oh, well, kind of a spoiler, so I don't regret not talking about him. But, yeah. So the first time there's any exposition was when Randall Park was explaining technically to the audience, but also to his daughter, and that's where the genius lies, about where Paul Rudd or Ant-Man has been the past 2 years and why he wasn't in Infinity War. Although we can assume that the events of Infinity War were kind of going on at the same time as Ant-Man and the Wasp, so, you know. But he gives this long paragraph of exposition about why Paul Rudd is like stuck at home and stuff, but it's so great because he delivers it in a very adult way. And then Cassie's just looking at it and like, what? Like what? And like, you know, Cassie's very mature in this movie. Like, she has her very adult moments and very, very intelligent moments. But even that's so funny when she just doesn't get what Randall Park was saying. And then Paul Rudd, Scott Lang, says, "Oh, you're really good with kids." And then he says, I'm also a youth pastor." And just that series of jokes that kind of make us tolerate the exposition more and add a bit of humor in it. That's just also brilliant. You gotta give it props because, you know, not every film has, like, if a film wants to deliver exposition, it can, but it can do it in a way that's not heavy-handed. Or just come up with a brilliant enough script to really, really show it instead of telling it. But if you have to tell it, this film does a really good job. And the second time any exposition was given was when the villain, well, there are many villains, but Ava was giving her backstory. And we'll talk about Ava in a bit too, because I think she's a very fascinating villain in this movie. A lot of twists and turns here. But yeah, the comedy, and she gives this huge exposition, and it's very, very good because, like, you see a really tragic backstory that, like, plays out in, like, flashback mode, which is clearly delivered to the audience. You can say how impure it is, how it's like, oh, you know, it's shoving it to the audience and not the characters. Whatever. I thought it was good. I was invested in it. But then by the time they finish the flashback, I'm like, okay, I realize this is exposition. And the moment I realized that is when Scott Lang's phone rang. And the first time, nobody cared about it. I'm like, oh, was that a comedic moment that just fell flat? But no, it came back second time and a third time, and it was so funny, and it made that whole scene so much, it made that just self-important weight of the movie, it kind of calmed it down a bit and made it a bit more just palatable for the audience. So that's fantastic. Yeah, we can go deep into some of the characters in this movie, but I want to talk about, like what I said in the spoiler-free section, the whole the juggling of all the different sides. At one point, I counted, and there were like 5 teams going on in this movie. We got Walton Goggins' team, we got Randall Park's FBI team, we got Hank Pym's team with Scott and Hope. That was early on in the movie before they like kind of separated. We got Michael Pena's team, and then there's one more obvious one that I'm missing out. Was it Ava? Hold on, yeah. Walton Goggins, Michael Pena, Hank Pym, Randall Park FBI, and Ava Lawrence Fishburne. So you got all of these sides, but they're juggled together so well. Nothing feels shoehorned in, except for one scene at the end where Michelle Pfeiffer heals Ava. That felt a little cheap. That felt a little like it could have been much more emotionally resonant. That was probably my one big critique. That the reason it's a 4.9 out of 5 is because of that moment where Michelle Pfeiffer heals Ava, and it's like, oh, I mean, we've established that she has these powers, but it's not just that, it's also the dialogue then. It's like, oh, are you hurt? I feel your pain. And then Ava's like, yeah, oh, I feel the pain. It hurts so much. And I don't mean to like downgrade, because she's a great character, but like just the way she delivers it, it's like, we know already. If all the dialogue was removed and she just goes up and touches her head and heals her, that would have been way more powerful. I guarantee you, compared to all the dialogue that I can help you. Yeah, it's a little corny over there, but that's a little detour. Let's go back to how they juggle the sides. It's fantastic, and arguably, there are things that this movie does even better than the Avengers, because with the Avengers, they kind of make it simpler by dividing into teams, which there are more characters in Avengers. I'm sorry, my point isn't clear. You'll understand what I'm saying in a bit. But basically, Avengers Infinity War divides everybody into different teams, different sides, doing different things, but they stick with each other's characters at all times. So we got this group of 4, we got this group of 3, we got this group of 5 characters that are all working as one unit, and that makes it easier. But in Ant-Man and the Wasp, every single big set piece or big sequence in the movie, you get different characters separating and coming back. For example, Michael Pena and Russian dude who I forgot. I literally just saw his name in the credits. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to remember that last name, and I totally forgot it. But Michael Pena, Russian dude, and T.I., they have their team. But at some point, Michael Pena rides with Hope while Scott Lang is flying around, and Russian dude and T.I. appear later. So these teams that you think, okay, these are the 5 teams, as the movie goes on, they get mixed up. They get swapped around. And obviously with the Infinity War, you're at different sides of the universe, and it's impossible to do that. But you can argue that is a way of making the narrative a little easier to do the character thing. So in a way, because of the small scale of Ant-Man, it manages to pull off some even more impressive things because of the way the characters keep on swapping. And it's super cool. Let me try to think if there are any other swapping moments. I mean, Lawrence Fishburne and Ava kind of stick together. Although even at the beginning, you think they're not together, and then you think that Lawrence Fishburne's like a good guy who's like, got a little bit of beef with Hank Pym, but then turns out that he and Ava were together. And because of the recent Pixar, our Incredibles 2 review and stuff, I totally thought when Ava first appeared in the suit, I totally thought that she was going to be Michelle Pfeiffer. Just because I'm like, oh, here's the villain. Guess what? It's going to be a character that we know because Pixar does it, and this is Disney, and Disney has no original ideas. And then very soon she takes off her mask, and it's someone I've never seen before, and I'm like, oh, you can do that. You can do that in a movie. Props to you. You did it. And then the Lawrence Fishburne reveal did come as a bit of a surprise. I like that. It added a lot of depth. But then throughout the movie, you see Ava and Lawrence, Robert Foster? No, not Robert Foster. I forgot Lawrence Fishburne's character's name. But throughout the movie, you see them argue. You see him feeling, empathy or sympathy for Scott Lang's daughter, telling Ava, not, please, whatever you do, do not touch that little girl. That argument was really good. And even Ava, you see why she's been feeling pain her entire life. And it's all because of Hank Pym and an accident that happened. And you feel like, it's a big cliche. You can argue that, yeah, we've seen this before. But you feel like the creation of Ava is something that could not have been, avoided. It could not have been prevented. Because of who Hank Pym was as a character. He was egotistical. Again, this movie's still dealing with his legacy. He was egotistical. And that has its repercussions. That has its consequences. And Ava is a result of that consequence. So the creation of Ava and her vengeance is completely fueled by just, you see her, again, her cells are being destroyed and rebuilt. I don't even know if that science makes any sense, but the way she describes it, understand she feels a lot of pain. And with that much pain going on in your life, I mean, she's probably contemplated suicide. She's probably had so many existential crises that, I don't even think the actress does her any justice, but she tries. And we believe in Ava's character whenever she says she feels pain, except for that very ending scene, which we already discussed. But, yeah, it's such a great character. It's such a great villain. And in the end, she's just a good person. And that's why the scene where Michelle Pfeiffer heals her did not bother me in the end, because in this type of movie, she does, she's going to become good. And you're rooting for her to become a good person again, become, not evil, become not so hateful again. And when it happens, it's good. And you see her and Lawrence Fishburne hug, and that was a great moment where Lawrence Fishburne basically is her fatherly figure. And she does have someone who cares for her, like Lawrence Fishburne. And that's all very beautiful. So there's a lot of good writing going on. And I don't know, I don't read the comics, so I don't know if the original comics were like that. I doubt that it juggled 5 stories at once. But it didn't feel like Thor Ragnarok, where it's so disjointed, where it's Ragnarok and Planet Hulk kind of mashed together. Yeah, again, the movie's a noteworthy attempt. It's a 4 out of 5 stars, but mostly due to appreciation, not due to enjoyment. Keep on bringing back Thor Ragnarok. It's really interesting. But, yeah. Oh, what else we got? Yeah, let's talk about the individual sides, since now I've kind of discussed the craziness of the juggling. Start with Randall Park. And, I don't know if he was the same guy who played the dude in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I think it was him. But he's being known as the asshole Asian. And I love asshole Asians. It's so good. We got attitude too. We got, we're tired of being the nice guy. We're tired of being Ken Jeong. He's got attitude, but it's usually a very pervy, small penis joke attitude, which is, I don't appreciate. Ken Jeong kind of dug himself into a hole way too early, and I don't like him very much. But, Randall Park in this movie, man, he's just trying so hard and he just doesn't get what he wants, and it's so entertaining to watch. And you see his eyebrows are so expressive, and you just see him going like, oh, god damn it, I missed him again. Oh shit, I missed him again. And then even at the end when he kind of asks for dinner, the way he kind of secretly admires Scott Lang, because he's a superhero and stuff, and he doesn't want to admit it. He's got his ego too, and he's sassy, and he's when he summons the FBI, let's go. That's all those moments together make the Randall Park's character in this movie just so good. And let's see who's next. Let's talk about Walton Goggins. And man, I'm missing out on a lot of good Walton Goggins performances. But the moment for me where he really shined, just in my overall movie watching experience, was in Hateful Eight, obviously, because He plays this dude, a deputy, I think. Is he a deputy? Man, I need to rewatch that movie. It's like my second favorite Tarantino film, and I already forgotten it. I saw it 2 or 3 times. I think I saw it twice. Yeah, I gotta memorize all those characters because all the characters are so good. But Walton Goggins in that movie is so phenomenal. He just all his kind of weird, he has this demeanor about him that he kind of brings no matter what kind of character he's playing. Whether he's playing a goofy dude, a villainous dude, he has this demeanor and this general accent that he brings that just makes him so unique. And earlier this year I saw him in Tomb Raider, and he was decently threatening for like the first bit, and then he just kind of got killed off and definitely did not get the screen time he deserved. It's Walton Goggins, for heaven's sake. And in this movie, it's the same way. He has some moments. He has, you love to hate him. He's kind of like the Justin Hammer, Like, Sam Rockwell did a good job with Justin Hammer, but, like, at the end of the day, no one remembers Justin Hammer. No one remembers Justin Hammer as a villain in this movie. And I think, I'm going to just throw this idea out there. Obviously, I can't do too many Marvel lists, but I'm hoping, after Avengers 4 comes out next year, I will make another list of ranking all the Marvel villains. And that'll be interesting because with the list that's coming up with the Marvel films ranked in terms of quality, there are only like 2 or 3 duds, and all of the other ones are 4 stars or above. So anything at that point is just personal preference. But with this one, with a villain ranking, we're getting so many bad villains that I want to see how that plays out. And where does Justin Hammer rank? Where does Whiplash rank? Where does Walton Goggins rank? I don't know, but I can't make too many Marvel lists, so I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna save that for next year, provided that I'm still alive and still making I Want Breakfast videos. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, but Walton Goggins is underused here. He has some good moments. Truth Serum, this joke is amazing. Oh my gosh, Truth Serum, Truth Serum, Truth Serum. And it's very meta too, the Truth Serum joke, because it's like, that's only in the movies, man. And then in the end, it acknowledges itself as that type of movie. Because maybe, there is no such thing as Truth Serum, but it's like it acknowledges that it is in a movie universe in the end by the dude saying, it is Truth Serum. It's just, there's a subtle meta brilliance there that I don't think people are fully aware of, so that's why I'm throwing that out there. And there's this one, before I go deep into the other characters, there's one thing I wanted to bring up, and I fear that I forget it, fear that I will forget it, so here it is. You know how I was saying this movie reminds me of like a real comic book movie, just like a comic book adaptation that you want to see, a la Sam Raimi, a la what are some other examples? I can't even think of any. A la Tim Burton Batman. Yeah, it feels like a Tim Burton and Sam Raimi type of superhero film. And what better way? It's like they knew what they were doing, because what do they do for the end credits, the beginning of the end credits? They show certain scenes with action figures. That alone right there shows that the creator of this movie were fully aware that they just wanted to dish out a great comic book adaptation movie that makes, for those who read the comics, makes them reminisce the days where they collect action figures and where they're in their bedrooms in the dim light, Lumos Maximus, reading the comics. And I just love the way they used action figures. Like, yeah, I can't remember. Like, with most Marvel movie end credit, beginning of their end credits, they just kind of show all the characters and like really cool logos, like silhouettes. Black Panther did that, Doctor Strange did that, and that's really cool and all. But this takes it a notch higher by using the action figures, because it just shows the philosophy of the movie in a way that it's very, very good, very well done. So that's that. Let's go deeper into more of the characters. I'm talking about Mycopania side. I love the Baba Yaga bit. Obviously, it reminded me of John Wick with, the Russian guy. And it did bring its own flair, With John Wick, when the dude talks about Baba Yaga, it's like threatened. It's like very threatening. Like, who is this John Wick? You haven't seen him in action yet, but you will. It's a foreshadowing for things to come in a very sinister and serious and badass way. In this film, Baba Yaga is played as a joke. And it's so good. And the final punchline of the joke is literally him singing Baba Yaga, a child's lullaby, which I'm assuming is an actual Russian thing. If it's not, then all the funnier, because like he literally made up this children's lullaby just to sing, like Baba Yaga, and the fact that he's actually terrified by the Baba Yaga story, it's like ingrained in his brain because he's probably been told that as a kid. That's a great joke. I wish T.I. had some more standout moments, but when T.I. just makes a snarky face, after he uses the taser, he makes the satisfied face. That's the T.I. I want to see. That's just so funny. I just wish that T.I. had more standout moments, because he is good. He is very funny. He has comedic chops. And then Michael Pena is funny. Oh, you got pezzed. And all of just his very long rant, like, the first movie had the back it up, but this movie had way more, where he's like, I'm a badass. Yes, I'm a badass. Yes, I'm a badass. And all of these moments work. And that's just who Michael Pena is. He plays that nervous dude, and very capable, but at the same time, very dorky. And that perfect balance just allows him to be quippy, allows him to ask too many redundant questions without being annoying. So the creation of his character is really, really good. And if this movie actually were improv, then Michael Pena just nails his character to a T. If this movie is not improv, then the scriptwriters nailed his character to a T. Now that I thought about the beginning with the I'm a badass part, this movie literally begins with like Scott Lang and his daughter doing this house tunnel maze thing made of cardboard. And it reminded me of a little film that came out last year that was pretty popular among the Letterboxd community, but I don't think anybody else saw it in the mainstream. And I highly recommend you check it out. I only saw 20 minutes of it, or 30 minutes of it, and the acting is not very good, but the movie has really good ideas. And I need to finish that so I can make a movie. I can make a review, not make a movie. So I can make a review of that film. I want to finish it and really see how far that film goes. The entire idea of this film is basically somebody builds a cardboard box, but it turns out to be like the TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside. And so this dude's friends kind of like go hunting for him inside this maze. And every single room, you get this really creative visual stuff going on with just cardboard and paper, and there's paper gore and all that cool stuff. This movie's called, I wanted to like milk it before I say the name of the movie, because for those of you who've heard of this, you'll get the satisfaction of being, I know what he's talking about. I love that. But this movie, for those of you who don't know, who didn't figure it out, it's called Dave Made a Maze, which is as obvious as it gets. It's called Dave Made a Maze. I think it was a Sundance film of 2017. It got like a very minor release. I wonder if it's even like straight to video or something, or straight to rental. But movies, from the 30 minutes I've seen, I wanted to keep on watching, but I think I actually knocked on Mark's door and I was like, hey, you want to watch a movie? And then he recommended something else and we watched something else instead. So I never got back to it. But again, the acting isn't very good. The acting's a bit amateurish, but this movie's creative, man. And it's only like an hour and 10 minutes, so please watch it. Please find Dave Made a Maze and watch it. Yeah, I'm so glad I didn't forget that. Allow me to pat myself on the back. Sometimes I turn off a video and I go, dang it, I forgot this. But I think all the important stuff that I wanted to say have already been said. So, but I still want to ramble about this film a bit more because it's awesome. Evangeline Lilly's great. Michael Pena. Were there any good Michael Pena jokes that I didn't mention? I mean, there are so many. That's the thing. This face when he says, it's truth serum. He has this giant smile. It's like he just discovered it. And it's like he doesn't even feel the threat of Walton Goggins. And that's just so good. It just plays into who he is as a character. And it it warrants more comedic moments. It warrants the scene to milk itself a little longer, all because of Michael Pena's happy face. If Michael Pena's been like, wait, that's truth serum, and then they just talk about truth serum like it's serious, that joke wouldn't have worked as well. But because it's Michael Pena's character, and because he has that big smile, oh, it's his truth serum, like it suddenly underplays the villain's power, Walton Goggins' power. So good. And that's what, you gotta, Marvel is Marvel, but you gotta look deep into these moments and really appreciate the beauty of it. Yeah. And if I wanted to make this comparison, going back to like how the action scenes were filmed, Black Panther was still worse. I'm sorry. Ryan Coogler might be able to direct a fantastic boxing sequence, but I think he still he has some trouble with big, giant, spectacle, multi-character war scenes. I still think the action scenes in Black Panther, the final act, were really, really subpar. And if we're comparing Peyton Reed's direction here and Ryan Coogler's direction in that movie, Peyton Reed wins. So that's basically how I feel about the action. It's very good for what it is, for a mainstream director or who doesn't do action. And all the creativity that goes into these set pieces do get to show despite some inconsistent editing. But it is no Black Panther. And I'll go into, because I don't want to spoil Black Panther too much in this video, I'll go deep into it when I talk about my Marvel Ranked. Yeah, look forward to that. I might do that tonight. I feel so energetic. I could ramble for a very long time. Yeah, so what else is there? What other teams are there? Ava, we talked about Ava. She's good. What was that weird moment when Ava first talks to Scott Lang where she's like borderline flirting with him? I didn't really understand that. She's just like, I want what's inside your brain. But she says it in a way where it's like, hey, you're funny. Yeah, that went nowhere. That's really weird. But, yeah, there's that. Michael Douglas, my gosh. What a phenomenal comedic actor. Like, there were so many moments where he does the same thing where he's like, hey, you mind if you stop thinking about my daughter? You mind if you stop staring at her? But every time he says it, it's great. You're just like, he's just this cranky old man. And he's great. He's fantastic. What are some other moments? He just has this power. Like, if we're talking about older actors in Marvel movies, you got your Robert Redford in Winter Soldier. And Winter Soldier is a movie I love to death. But Robert Redford kind of brought his stature to the movie. But his character was so weak sauce, man. His character it didn't even work. He was like not even significant at all. Especially when compared to Hank Pym. And it helps that Hank Pym's a good guy and he's kind of like a protagonist. And again, like what I said about the title of the movie, it is his movie as much as it is Scott Lang's movie. But still, Michael Douglas, it's like he's having the second wave. And I hope he eventually gets to do like what Morgan Freeman is doing, except maybe with like do a Going in Style, but with Michael Douglas. That'd be so good. And yeah. Oh, there's one thing I want to talk about. Oh, I'm so glad I remembered it. Yeah. So, okay, this film is basically the first Ant-Man, but like with everything multiplied by 3. Everything is played out to the max. The comedy's played out to the max. The shrinking and enlarging thing is played out to the max. Everything's played out to the max. You know what else is played out to the max? The de-aging thing. It's like they went the first film, they tried it out with the de-aging. Everyone said, oh my gosh, is that Wall Street era Michael Douglas? Did he secretly film this in the 90s? Everyone loved it. They kind of experimented in Civil War with young Tony Stark. I thought it was overall pretty. It was still, that scene was a little awkward for me for some reason, but I thought it was pretty successful. In this film, you see a young Michelle Pfeiffer, and she looks fantastic. You see a young you see a young Michael Douglas, and he looks just as great as he did in the first Ant-Man. But the one that really got me was when young Lawrence Fishburne came out. Oh my gosh. He looks so good. He looks like Morpheus. That's freaking Morpheus right there. Man, this de-aging stuff is getting so good. It's nuts. And I'm glad they used it. It just, oh man, yeah. Gotta give props to that. That's pretty phenomenal. Yeah, again, changing the topic. If we're talking about like the logistics of the film and the sci-fi and the pseudoscience of the film, yeah, a lot of it doesn't make any sense. For example, like, did Scott Lang really have enough time to appear in the bathroom, switch off his switch the ankle bracelet with the ant, put it on him somehow? We don't even know how he does that. And then walk out. The ant disappears somewhere. He probably shrinks it. And he's like, yep, I'm here. I'm barfing. No, there's no way it could have humanly happened. But because the scene was well constructed, I bought into it. It's like that whole thing where a lot of people talk about this. In Inception, where Arthur needs to bomb, I remember the characters of that movie, the character names. But when Joseph Gordon-Levitt has to bomb the elevator, when he's in the hotel dream world, there's no way he could have done that much in 3 minutes. So apparently he had 3 minutes. He had to fight off a guy, tape a bunch of elevators, and like wrap all these dudes. Sorry for spoilers for Inception, but come on, this is Inception. Wrap all these dudes around in like telephone wire and like set it up perfectly. Can he do that in 3 minutes? No. Do I care? No, because that movie is so cinematic, and that moment especially is just building up to something that is so satisfying. So, gotta give it to Inception. This is the same thing. Are there things that probably couldn't happen? Yes. Are there things that were kind of glossed over? Like, oh, they escaped, but we don't really know how. Yes. But do I care? No, I don't. Because this movie's great. Oh my gosh, there's one. Well, yeah, let's talk about Bobby Cannavale, because I kind of did a brief little, like, a comparison with how I really liked him as the stepdad in both movies, because in the first Ant-Man, he's like the villainous stepdad. And before that, I'd seen him in a couple of other things. I'd seen him in the Annie remake, where he was just god-awful. Oh my gosh, what a terrible character. What a terrible way to get introduced to freaking Bobby Cannavale. Because that was the first film, I think, where I actually recognized him. But you look at the first film, he's like the annoying stepdad. You'd love to hate him. And then what? At the end, he kind of becomes a good guy, and they have dinner together. In this film, he's always the last one to bring the hug in for the whole family. And there's probably no true family that actually exists that works so well together. I mean, maybe they exist, but I've never seen one. But it just shows how Bobby Cannavale, as an actor and the characters he chooses, he's in that perfect zone where he can play a good guy and he can play a bad guy, and they would equally be convincing. It's like, okay, I mean, we can't talk about Kevin Spacey anymore, but imagine, like, the way we thought of Kevin Spacey before his allegations, Like, when he plays a good guy, you still don't trust him. You still don't trust him because he's Kevin Spacey. Who's another? He's the only example I could think of. That's why I chose him. But yeah, that's the Bobby Cannavale thing. Oh, and it's great to see present day Michelle Pfeiffer as a sympathetic good character, because the last movie I saw her in was Mother, and my gosh, did I love to hate her in that movie. She's this annoying woman, and I don't want to spoil it too much, because Mother is a film that I deeply love, but the whole meaning behind it is something that you should go in as blind as possible. So I recommend Mother. It's not for the faint of heart. It is not for the faint of heart. It is not for the faint of heart. But if you are not of the faint of heart, go see Mother. But yeah, the last film I saw Michelle Pfeiffer in was Mother, and I had this thing with Marion Cotillard where the first film I saw her in was Inception, and afterwards I saw Midnight in Paris, and I just could not take her. I just could not see her in a non-villainous light. So that was a shame. I still don't know if I could see Marion Cotillard as a non-villain, because she also plays the Ra's al Ghul's, spoilers. She plays a certain character in Dark Knight Rises, and she turns out to be like not so good at either. So yeah, thanks to Christopher Nolan, Marion Cotillard's forever evil for me. But it's good to know that after Mother, which is the most vile film ever made, I mean, not vile, I mean, some people actually think it's the most vile film ever made. It's the most vicious film ever made. There, that brings it, it's a different connotation. Mother, despite being the most vicious film ever made, I'm glad to know that I'm able to enjoy Michelle Pfeiffer as a good, or rather middle-aged Michelle Pfeiffer. I'm sure I can always see Catwoman and be like, she's Catwoman. But I'm glad that I can see present-day Michelle Pfeiffer as a totally benevolent, good character. And maybe that's this film doing a good job, but maybe it's just Michelle Pfeiffer being awesome. Yeah. And then at the end, like, it's so funny. So everyone, everyone is happy, and Michael Douglas or Hank Pym takes Janet to the beach, takes out this little house, and enlarges it. And all I could think of was, man, is that the house from Mother? Yeah, it's like the house from Mother shows up in the end, and Michelle Pfeiffer is like old, and then Hank Pym basically plays Javier Bardem's character, and they're just gonna replay that entire movie again. They're gonna go inside, and they're gonna be like, Jennifer Lawrence, what are you doing here? And then it's gonna be totally crazy. No, not Javier Bardem. What the hell am I talking about? I mean, Ed Harris, not Javier Bardem. My gosh. Yeah. Yeah, so Hank Pym plays Ed Harris's character in Mother, and then this movie basically connects to Mother, is what I'm saying. No, it doesn't. But yeah, I think that is a very, very good talk on Ant-Man and the Wasp. Anyone who sees the runtime of this video are going to be like, oh my gosh, he's just rambling way too much. How can this movie be worthy of an hour-long discussion? Well, guess what? I hope for those who finish this video, they can agree with me that, yeah, it's worth it. It's good. It's phenomenal. It's great. It's one of my favorite films of the year. I'm struggling between this and Ready Player One. I loved Ready Player One. I think this is Spielberg return to form in some ways. We can talk about that later. I'll rewatch it before the end of the year and give you guys a review of what I think about it. But yeah, I don't know if I like this more or Ready Player One in terms of my year end. Paddington 2 is still better. Infinity War is still better. Every Day is still better because I love that movie. I'm a sucker for it. And then what's the other one? 24 Frames is my favorite film. If we're talking US release dates, 24 Frames is still the best film released this year. And I'm sad I didn't get to make a video of it, but I hope I get to see it again soon. And really, it's not a movie you can really make a video on. But now I'm just rambling. So, you guys probably already turned it off. But we'll see if I make my Marvel ranked. I might make it tomorrow because I want to just go hard. But I haven't uploaded my Lady Bird review yet, so I gotta do that. I haven't uploaded my Zombies review yet. I gotta do that. C'est la vie. That is that. That's not what c'est la vie means, but that is life, and that is that. All right. Bye, guys. Thanks for watching.